Okay, so we are moving on to our round table.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I was just like, I'll just put that word in there because those two
I was
words in there
like,
because it sounds
okay,
good. I mean,
okay. So
it, this actually, I'll set this up a little bit myself because unless you have a great segue. No? Okay. Like, a friend of mine got the vaccine just because she didn't want to have to deal with not being able to do things.
Mhm.
Uh, but she's like, we didn't need to shut down only at the time 450,000 people have died. That's not that big a number. And then I see the other day that we're, as of this today at least, we're about it's still like about 45,000 COVID deaths away from surpassing all the people that AIDS has killed over the last 40 years in the U.S. Who, for 80s babies and even 90s babies, we know how much of an impact AIDS and HIV was and still is. The AIDS quilt, shows like Rent, Pose, really shed a light on like what the culture was like, especially in the LGBTQ community. It was the epidemic of our time, especially in this country. As far as it's just saying, not especially, but like because this is what we know in America, and it changed so much stuff. Where it's like you take more precautions and all the research and condoms and prep and all these different things. And I juxtapose in my head from someone saying that only this many people died, but we're going to surpass that with COVID, and people are still denying that it exists or that the vaccines mean anything. But there are probably people who would take AIDS for the most part pretty seriously and probably wrap it up. Maybe not all of them, but at least a good portion of them. So, like, my whole idea of proposing this roundtable is like, do you think comparing the two in the sense of like how many deaths are coming in 700,000 with AIDS in 40 years as opposed to almost 700,000 in a year and a half with COVID, do you think that might help jog certain people to get their shit together?
No.
It's a good point, but people that made their decisions made their decisions. Most times we only find information to validate what we already believe.
Also a good portion of, Tater, that is like a really solid point. And also a good amount of the people that don't think COVID's important or real or like care about it, think it's a hoax, are also like, they have a good overlap with the same people who probably don't have any sympathy for people who have gotten AIDS. So I feel like they think of it as like something that those people deserve to get. It's just a weird way of, I don't think there's an easy way to tap into those brains.
Yeah, I think it exceeds logic in most cases because you're dealing with people's feelings. If people would just think logically, they would understand. Now this FDA thing has, I mean, I haven't followed any news, but what I have seen on...
Darius is back.
Someone is here.
And so then I was saying like, yo, bro, get a haircut. Like, he was at the storage unit with me. I'm like, oh, hi, Darius.
Welcome back.
You actually made it in time for item number 4 of the round table. And the question I'm posing is, with the deaths of COVID within the next few months surpassing AIDS deaths in this country, do you think that comparison can make an impact on people who are refusing to get vaxxed? And
Absolutely
so far,
not.
it seems a consensus. Yeah, that's been the consensus.
No. People, they have it made up in their minds, and they're going to keep setting different benchmarks, at least everybody that I know. First, it was, it's we just don't know if it actually works, or we don't know if it's safe. Then it was, we don't know if it's going to be FDA approved. Now that it's FDA approved, we don't know the long-term effects of it. Like, it's always going to be a different benchmark instead of it just being, I don't want to get it. And instead of I still don't agree with these people, but I almost respect the people more that are just like, I just don't want to get it, as opposed to the people that are setting these arbitrary benchmarks that they know, if it happens, they're still not going to get vaccinated. So just be honest with me, just be honest with yourself, and then we can start having a conversation.
Well, Tater, you were just touching on
he followed up where I was going.
Yeah, he so rudely interrupted you.
No, he knew where to go.
Took control like he was the host.
He definitely has to get his 2 minutes of speaking in for the
Yeah,
entire
that's it. That's it for the rest of the
Humans,
podcast.
wait
We
Yeah.
can log off now.
Good night, everybody. See you maybe next week. All right.
Maybe, maybe not. Wait,
Oh. Balls, what do you think?
So I was curious and I looked up some numbers, and I think unfortunately that people, like any statistics, they will use it for it or against it, right? I mean, that's what you guys were saying. Similar to baseball statistics, right? You can look at your last 10 games and be like, wow, you're 9-1. That's amazing. Then you could look at your last 100 games and be like, oh, wow, you're horrible. You're 9-9 in 91. So there's a huge difference, right? So, I mean, looking at the total COVID cases in the United States at 39.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then someone's going to say the deaths are around, you said 640, 640,
Yeah, as of yesterday.
Oh, I see where you're going.
which
Well,
is only
Yeah,
16%
yeah,
of deaths
Right.
in the,
Of
you
the
know, so they're
infected.
going to say, well, only 16% of the people have died. So my
Yeah.
odds are pretty good.
16% sounds a lot better than 600,000 deaths.
Yeah, so so the numbers get changed in a way. So the people that are against it are going to say the odds are tens, hundreds, thousands. I think it's actually different. I have 0.016.
I
So
have
not 16%, right?
uh,
Tens, hundreds, thousands. That's
Well, I'm looking at one of these sites.
that's 1%.
Actually, that our friend Greg.
I made a
recommended.
mistake.
It says that tomorrow cases in the U.S. will surpass 40 million. Right now,
Yeah.
we're at 653,266 deaths.
Did you say
Hospitalizations.
653?
Huh?
You said 653.
653,000.
So it's funny. I
So
have.
it's like 10.6%, give or take.
So the numbers that you gave us was effective yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah,
51. So we've already gone up 2,000 in a day.
yeah. Yeah. But
The-
no, but what you're saying though, that percentage, even if it's only
It's less than
tens-
10%, but
yeah, this says 10 points. It depends, like, because like CDC says one thing. I mean, look how like the new
Well,
governor
40
of New
million,
York released the
10% would
real
be-
numbers. You know, like it depends.
40
on
million,
How about
10% would be
this for
4
numbers?
million.
So
What?
the disease is among the 10th deadliest of the pandemics in history. And the worst outlooks make it the number 3 killer of Americans in 2020. How about those numbers?
Yeah, it's all about how you frame.
Well, yeah,
the
2020, sure.
It's
I'm
all about
surprised
how
it
you
wasn't
phrase
number
it.
one.
I think
Let me guess: heart
Cancer.
disease and car accidents.
Yeah,
no,
I was
heart
gonna say
disease
cancer.
and cancer, actually.
Yeah.
Cancer, yeah.
Two
There's
in my
so many
family,
different types of cancer.
both in my family history.
Oh, you just
Wow.
brought the whole mood
I
down.
was about to say I shut
The other
everything
day,
down.
I'm like,
Damn,
All
the
good?
downer went worse.
I'm a realist. Sorry.
Yes, fired.
Yeah,
I
too
mean, the
late.
numbers that Ball said, though, like when you do think of it from like sound stats, like those are more like if you're trying to compare AIDS to COVID, like those,
Yeah.
that way of comparing it is like the scientifically logic way to do it.
Mhm.
You'd have to do how much of the total infected section is impacted or like killed. So those
It's-
percentages, it does tell you which one is like technically more deadly, but the sheer amount of people who have died should matter a bit more. But I could see how like, yeah, those numbers would get twisted.
I mean, because AIDS and HIV was pretty much a death sentence, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it
we all
was,
think
and now
Magic-
it's like
we all
not
think
anywhere
Magic
close to it
Johnson
anymore.
was this. Magic Johnson was this miracle of science, right? It was like, what? How can you have it and still be, alive? And then, yeah, we've come a long way in 40 years that it's, it can be undetected by a test if
you have
taking
all the
the proper
pills and stuff, right?
medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, also with like AIDS too, there's like the factor of at least the majority of people, it's like a consensual interaction where like you put yourself at risk, like the risks that are there. Whereas like somebody like going to the grocery store shouldn't have to get
Yeah.
COVID just because someone around them is running around, or like a little school kid or whatever shouldn't have to get COVID because their teacher came to
Mhm.
school with
Took
it.
their mask off because they wanted to do a read aloud, which
Yeah,
apparently happened.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not
mean-
like the same type of interaction.
Mhm.
It's like it's basically COVID's like the the biggest orgy version of it, minus the sex stuff.
I have a question. Did
Yeah,
anyone
it's
watch?
The good parts are gone.
And it's just
I already know what to get that.
then it's just people standing together.
Ash is like,
Across America.
can I use
What-
that
what was your
quote inside
question?
one of my next novels?
Oh yeah, of course. Just I need to yeah. I need to use that. So I'm gonna consult with you later.
Can dragons and humans get
Coexist.
like can they like contract different viruses? Like if it is a dragon disease, can a human
Talking about
get it?
bestiality again.
A dragon can change.
Listen,
into
after
human
last
form.
week with the shit she was talking about, let me tell you that clip premieres tomorrow on YouTube. I know none of you have
man.
watched any of them, but I highly suggest that one you watch
tried.
again.
Oh,
Whoa.
The sound of my own voice is just really.
Tina's like, yeah, me
but-
too.
Whoa. I think
Voice,
two of
voice,
those
voice.
likes were from two separate accounts.
No,
that I-
you watch them.
One was
said
at
none
work
of
and
us,
one
though.
was on my phone.
I'm kidding. But anyway, that was my roundtable discussion.
Ashley, I think, started to ask a question and then got
Mhm.
derailed by the orgy.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to state that. I mean, by stating those facts and stating that percentage, people, if two other people see this, they may think that I'm against vaccinations, and I'm not against the shot. I have the shot. I've taken the shot. You know, I believe we all have. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
all
you
6
know,
of us are. Yeah.
I wanted to make that point, but I hear where they're coming from. Like I said, with numbers, they're not. I'll use the word manipulating because you're not really changing the numbers. You're just changing the way to look at certain
Mhm.
things. So I
Yeah.
can see where they're coming from with that. I mean, who knows in 40 years if we can say, hopefully, look how far we've come with this, you know, and it's completely gone. And we could be like, I can't believe 40 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Or,
Mhm.
hopefully I'll be saying that because hopefully I'll still be around in 40 years. But anyway. But you know, I just kind of wanted to make that point that, you know, I'm still vaccinated. I'm vaccinated either way, and I kind of understand, like I said, where people are coming from with that. But the other issue was originally it was like everybody should get vaccinated. We're like, great, and then it was like, okay, I'm vaccinated, I can take my mask off, right? And they're like, no. And then other
Yeah.
people were like, why am I gonna get? It was almost like there wasn't an incentive, which is horrible. There should be an incentive. It's let's stop spreading this shit. But so then they were like, okay, you can take it off if you get it. So then people took the masks off because they got the vaccine.
And they also didn't get it and took
Yeah.
off their mask.
And then they were like, I'm gonna pretend that yeah. Oh, trust me, the Walmart that I go to in a certain area, it's like a lot of those religious people are against vaccinating their kids, and it's like, first of all, you're not vaccinated and your kids are under 12 and you all have your masks off. Like, I wanted to call bullshit, but my wife tends to kind of pull me back in because she's like, I don't need you to get arrested. But I know a lot of other people would have my back in that store too. But anyway,
There's guns in those stores sometimes, though, so probably not.
that one might be. Yeah, there might be in that one. I think. I know they sell ammo because when COVID first hit, there was a people buying a ton of
Ammo
ammo.
and
I was
toilet
like,
paper.
dang. Yeah.
That's how we fight viruses.
Yeah.
Oh, and Oreos. Oreos were a thing
Yeah.
as well.
Hell yeah.
And toilet paper.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, I see where they're coming from. And then it's like, you know, I have the vaccine, I can still get it, and I can still transmit it. So then they're all kind of like, oh, you know, again, what's the point of it all? But then my point is, yeah, but you have a higher risk of dying from it, and I don't. So
Yeah.
I think that's a plus.
Well, I mean, I just think that people forget, like, we go and get the flu shot all the time, and they tell you the same thing with the flu shot.
Yeah.
It's literally it's science, you know. And I think that we're watching science happen, and people that didn't come to the table with an open mind of understanding how science works or like how things are done. You know, I would say we probably had the same situation when they made the first influenza vaccine, or you know, anything like that, and it just upsetting to see history repeat itself so
Yeah.
well. It's just like, what the heck? Do we not learn from any of those moments? I mean, I do get, and there's a distrust in the government because of things that they have done with vaccines in the past too. So, or things that experiments and stuff like that, you know, that affected a lot of people, you know?
Here are these blankets,
Um,
Native Americans. Tuberculosis.
Unfortunately, I think it's because it's the
Or
whole country.
smallpox.
It's not
Both. I think.
Smallpox.
a little farm of people they can pick from as far as like it's concerned. Like they made sure they get the soldiers. You know, they knew the group that they were getting when they did stuff like that during those trials. So this is the whole country. So it's just like, you know, I just don't understand. And I really think it's because it was made political in the beginning. If it
Oh, yeah.
wasn't, then I think everything would have been fine.
And you see all the memes going around about, you know, and they still don't listen. It's, you know, the people telling you not to get it, Fox News say, all their anchors, all their workers have to be vaccinated. You have to wear masks to work in their buildings, and yet you're still believing this lie. You know, and we talked about it last week, how Trump got booed at his own rally for telling people to get vaccinated. It's just,
The thing is, I already know what someone like them would say when it comes to that. I had to do it in order to make sure that I can continue reporting about the conspiracies with the vaccine. You know,
True.
I was willing to do it to make sure that you guys, you know, saw
Yeah.
the truth or whatever.
I did it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they sniffle and say that they feel worse. And then they get COVID anyway. And then they say that it's no good. I think the reality is that there's like a all or nothing approach with all this stuff. And people don't get that even if you get the vaccine and you do all the right things from our opinion, like our point of view, you could still get it, get really sick and die. Like it's not like you can convince this disease to like suddenly stop or something, or that science is ever entirely perfect. And so anytime there's an example of anything that looks like it failing, the other side of things uses that as a reason not to do it while they also get it and die. So it's just like we all need to realize that we're all fighting the disease and not each other, but I don't think that seems to.
It's because
Get
one
rid of
side
people.
made it about the other thing, about fighting each other.
Yeah. Like
This
if
is
it
some
didn't
grand
affect
conspiracy.
other people, then I think we'd all be perfect. It's shitty, but I think we'd all be perfectly fine doing
Is
the
it
whole
bad of
survival
me
of the fittest
to-
thing. Like we tried to explain it to you, you don't listen. You get it, that's your problem. You end up dying because you decided that's how you wanted to live your life. It's your body, your choice. You're gonna fucking force people to do shit they don't want to do. Like whatever, do your thing. But
Is it bad of me
it
to
gets
think-
other people sick, and that's where it gets kind of hairy.
No, I just think, is it bad of me that I think that, you know, if it does become mandatory, I mean, that's still a choice that everyone decides to make? Like, as far as like, if they don't want to, then they wouldn't shop at that place. Any business
Oh.
owner is allowed to make that rule
I
regardless.
see people be so pissy about it that it surprised me. Like what you see on social media, like people like coming up with all these like laundry lists of like ways you can twist like a hostess's or waiter's arm about like, why do you need to see my vaccine card and shit. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
If you want to be part of society, you have to like partake or not. Just like eat in your backyard and
That's what I think. Like, you know,
uncivilized shit on your own.
Also, don't
go
protect
hunt for your
as well,
food.
but
Yeah, go eat berries
there are
and
people
stuff.
too. They're trying to stay safe. Like we're just all making it harder on each other by not participating in this.
I'm sure that there's businesses that are against, you know, the masks and the vaccines, and I'm sure that they can find places that would, you know, appease them and
Well,
serve
Staten Island
them.
had a place like that that just stayed open despite and didn't institute any of the
That they closed down.
they kept closing down, They could, in defiance, it just kept reopening and chest thumping. And then there was a place, I forget where, I saw it on the news that says,
Oh,
no
I thought that closed down no business, and not closed down because they were
they
still.
had plenty of business. They had plenty of business. They got closed down by the city because it was Staten Island. They were saying today on the news this morning that all the rates are down, including in the Bronx, which I'm actually very surprised about because people in the Bronx have been very, very hesitant for the
They'll try
reasons.
to fight you if you don't have your mask in the
Yeah,
Bronx.
but for the Bronx tends to be more of a cultural reason in the sense of the mistrust of the government that you guys were touching upon. But Staten Island and parts of Queens that are the rich white people who are very Trump tend not to get it. So those numbers are on the rise. Staten Island and parts of Queens are on the rise, whereas the rest of the city is actually going down because a lot of people have been like, all right, let me get this vaccine. And but there was even a business, I forget exactly where it was. This was a couple of weeks ago, that had a sign that said mandatory no mask required to enter. Basically no admittance with a mask on because they were just chest thumping and trying to rebel and make a point. And
oh,
stuff.
that sounds like a bad business move. Like,
Yeah, but
I mean,
but they were when the news went there to do the story, they were packed because
Of
wherever
course.
they
Of
were
course.
was filled with like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Who they knew
You
who they were
attract the
catering
clients
to.
you want.
Understanding
Exactly.
your market and where you are and whether or not the people around you are gonna resonate with that.
then
It
I'm
is a-
I'm okay with that if they want to do things that are riskier to themselves and each other.
But here's
That's
the
the
thing.
that
problem
is
is
how-
that they
Eventually
take the
it's-
subway and they drive around and they go to your grocery store and they cough on your baby or some
Exactly.
shit, and then everybody else around them has to get sick and
It's
die.
only a matter of a short amount of time till these people create a variant that is completely like they're saying that this month, meaning now when this airs, but next month September is when the booster shot for Pfizer will become available. We shouldn't have to have gotten to a point where we needed it, but we do, and it's just eventually we're at this point. We're at a point where we're a little bit ahead of the virus now, because we've had decades of different coronaviruses to build this vaccine and boosters off of. But at some point, if this continues, all the experts say that the virus will surpass us. And all the people who did things right will now suffer because people like that did do stupid shit. So I'm not really okay with them doing that because eventually it could hurt me, kill me, or someone I care about. And I don't know. I mean, I guess...
It'd only be fine in those terms, like if it affected them really quickly and didn't have time to spread.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like we're wishing death upon people, but it's like, what else can you do when they keep fucking shit up?
you need
that's why I said you have to allow people to experience those things when they don't want to see what's right in front of them sometimes. And if they want to experience it amongst other people like them that don't want to do that, then I think that they have that right. But if they want to go into a place like the supermarket afterwards, like the train station afterwards, then you need to wear a mask. That's what you got to do. You don't want to do it. Yeah, like you said, go live in the woods. Pick some fucking berries.
Police tend to not
Yeah.
enforce it because, for whatever reason, the police have pretty much the majority of police
For
departments.
whatever reason.
I know.
All of
But-
society treating like them
Police
like shit.
departments have
whatever
tended to
reason.
side on the Fox News trumpet side of things of like,
Yeah,
don't
when
wear masks, don't
wasn't-
enforce it.
wasn't someone saying, I
demoralized.
think I saw an article where they were going, I think it might have been the list that you gave us, where they were going to sue
Mhm.
because of the whole mask mandate or the vaccine mandate.
There have been a lot of people looking to sue. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure my union is filing something now because they mandated us at work. So, I know they're filing those court paperwork and to get an injunction on that. But I'm sure everybody's going to go that route.
Yeah, my wife's waiting to hear from UFT.
Yeah, that's like a trickier situation though. Like,
Well,
because
yeah.
I don't think anyone has the right to tell pregnant women what to do
Right.
during this.
Agreed.
Everyone else, and maybe like parents with their children of a certain age that are really small or that might have some sort of illness or whatever, I think they have the right to, do whatever they need to do and then isolate or whatever they can to try to prevent anything. But
This is
everybody
why I
else should
think-
just fucking suck it up.
I think this is why the best solution is to make sure that if people want to employ people that don't have the vaccine, if they don't care about those things, then that's what's going to happen. You would get employed under that type of business that aligns with your moral compass. But if they're asking, I think every business has a right to ask, decide who they want to serve and who they employ. The only thing that I think is the tricky part is the HIPAA privacy laws. I don't understand how this goes around it. I guess an executive order or something.
I
It's
don't
like
know.
both that plus I think it could fall under discrimination because, for example, can your business say that you won't employ someone who has AIDS? Because you can't do that.
No, you can't.
That's the
Going back to
conversation I was
But
having
AIDS,
with
the
my friend,
COVID thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the difference will be is that they'll probably treat it the way that they did in the 80s, where if they found out, you would get fired because you're a risk to others. And
Mhm.
I think the situation that's very different.
there's something specifically in law that states that you can't fire somebody because they have AIDS. If it falls
Now, though. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
now.
that
Not
fell
in the
into
80s, correct.
Yeah.
If it
Yeah.
falls under, you cannot. If you have something that prevents you from performing your daily activities or your daily job, that's different. And it's not because you have AIDS, it's because you cannot perform. But of course, there's wiggle room, right? I mean, you don't have to be continuing to perform that. If it's a big company, they can move you to somewhere else. But of course, they're not going to. They're just going to say, no, we're getting rid of you. And we
I
all know
mean,
the reason
They'll
why.
find an
I mean,
excuse.
It'll
Yeah.
come down to how lawyers argue it, and then
Yeah.
there'll be appeal, and eventually it would make its way up to the Supreme Court. And as we see, with the Supreme Court being overwhelmingly conservative now, as we saw with the eviction moratorium that we discussed last week, what's the likely outcome of that going to be? It's going to be like, well, we are arguing they can't perform their duties because they need to be in person, but they're putting other people at risk. And then the other side saying, well, if they put a mask on, then they're not, because you've been saying that masks protect people. And then eventually courts will have to decide that, I think.
I think people who don't want to get the vaccine should just figure out a way to become remote workers. And if you're in a dire situation, the vaccine is free. Decide whether or not you want to be able to make a living,
That,
or if you're so hung up on the vaccine, like you have to decide. That's a decision they should be forced to make. But I think it does get tricky when businesses are able to make these types of decisions, because I don't think a business should be able to force you to like take the vaccine and then come into work in person. I don't think it's actually, doesn't seem legal.
But then it also...
But for certain
People,
jobs,
I
like you have an
think-
in-person job, so it's
I think a lot of businesses, what they're doing is they're encouraging it.
mhm.
They're not requiring it. So
They're treading carefully
Well,
because
they're
they
afraid
know
of
it could get them
lawsuits.
addicted.
Yeah, they don't know what's
all
gonna happen
the- All
yet.
the nice wording they're using as of this point.
Yeah.
They're trying to skate
Pizza
around.
party.
Say, hey, you have your
I'll do it!
vaccine, come to the barbecue.
But
Make
going back to
sure you
what
have your
Bex,
card.
what Bex was just saying, like getting the, if you choose to not do it, then you should arrange your life in a certain way where you don't have to be in person. Unfortunately, because be it in the part of the community of Americans that are more white, who are doing it for political reasons, as opposed to the African American community and Latin community that are doing it for the reasons of mistrust of the government, the majority on both sides are people who are not in a position to have jobs that aren't in person necessarily, that aren't on the higher paying spectrum where they get to be remote. It's a lot of in-person things, and then
Yeah, but they
because a
could
lot
be
of
like
it comes down to understanding science, education, exposure to culture, and other different ways of thought and thinking. And that's not everybody, of course. There are plenty on both sides that are, executive level, who have every access to actually understand
just
and
that are
just
all
choose not
posting
to.
on Facebook
Yes.
and Twitter and stuff, but they could just become America's call centers. Like I love the teams I've worked with in the Philippines. They're awesome. But maybe America doesn't have to continue outsourcing to all these countries in the middle of the night.
Well, that would
Pick up
require
phone calls.
companies to
So maybe
actually
they could
pay.
do those things.
That would require companies to spend money to help the country, and
Yeah.
we all know one of the
Yeah.
main reasons why
Figure
quarantine
out-
didn't work was because the American government did not put money into actually sustaining small businesses and the people, unlike all the other Western countries in Europe that said, we're closing and you're all going to be okay, and we're putting money behind that, and America just isn't going to do it.
Yeah, I just mean like lower paying jobs for people who don't want to make the sacrifice. But I'm also saying that from a point of privilege myself. So
But hey, Roundtable was a success. We had a round table.
Yay!
it's
Hold
a
on, hold on.
rectangle on my
I was
screen,
gonna
but
say, I was like, can you draw like a
Like they say in wrestling and boxing and UFC, the squared ring. Actually, UFC is an octagon. Octagon.
Octagon.
So, and
It's not
wrestling
not
and
a
in boxing,
square,
it's the squared ring.
rectangle. It's a rectangle.
It's the rectangled round table.
Right, it's right. There you go.
table with corners.
We know shapes.
Back to Sesame Street.